I am about to make over the bottom section of this outdated china cabinet that I found on Facebook Marketplace for a deal into a brand new mobile DIY kitchen island. It's a furniture flipping project that I've never taken on before, but it's been on my DIY bucket list for a while now. So let's see if I can pull this off. Welcome to Salvaged by K. Scott. The idea of flipping a kitchen island or turning a piece of furniture into one came up in my last Thrift With Me video a few months ago, and your comments made it very clear that this was a project you definitely wanted to see. So I've been keeping my eyes peeled for the perfect piece of furniture ever since, and I think this is the one. I'm only going to be using the bottom portion of this unit for my island today, but I won't let the top go to waste. It'll just be a project for another day. Honestly, I see cabinets like this all the time on Facebook Marketplace, and they're usually super affordable, probably because they're just so big and bulky and not the household furniture staple that they used to be. They are, and still can be though, really amazing storage pieces, and I think they're pretty perfect for repurposing into furniture that people do use today, like kitchen islands or coffee bars. The top of this unit is solid maple, so I think I want to strip off the finish that's on here and change the tone of the wood a little bit. The doors and drawer fronts look like they're also solid, but all the side panels are veneer over top of particle board. As always, I'm going to get started by breaking things down, removing the hardware, drawers, and doors, and then I'm going to give each surface a good clean with a heavy-duty degreaser to get rid of any grease or grime from its previous life, and also any old furniture polish residue that might cause issues with my new finish bonding well. I am not a fan of these back plates, so I don't think I'm going to hang on to them, but the knobs themselves aren't bad. They're pretty simple and unassuming. I might just stick them right back on here when I'm done. We'll see. Oops. Oh well. I really like using simple green to clean my furniture projects and a lot of other things around the house. It's great at cutting through tough grease and silicone residue, so I usually use it full strength out here in the garage, and I've got another bottle of it diluted down that I use a lot in the kitchen, but you can use whatever all-purpose degreasing cleaner you prefer. Okay, while this finish is drying out, I think I'm going to run to the hardware store because I do need to pick up a few things. I need to find some sort of finished panel that I can replace this kind of cardboard looking backer panel with. So we've got a nice finished surface on all four sides. Same thing with the trim on the bottom. I need something that I can wrap all the way around for a nice cohesive look. And I need to either look through my scrap pile or just pick up some 2x4s, I think, to attach to the bottom. So I've got a nice solid wood, stable surface to screw my casters or wheels onto. I was hoping to grab a big 4x8 panel of this MDF beadboard, but my store only seems to have these 8-foot long tongue and groove boards that click together in the style that I want. So I guess that's what we're going with. I did buy 2 packages of this, but I think I'm only going to need one of them. And I also grabbed some basic pine baseboard to trim out the bottom. There are some extra wood plinths on the bottom here, probably either from shipping or added on by the old owner to protect the bottom edge from the vacuum and mop. I can't see how they're attached though, so I think I need to peel off these felt pads.
Okay, it's stapled on.
I'm going to go ahead and flip this all the way upside down so I can just follow the screws around the bottom to get the current baseboard off. And I think I can unscrew the top from here too, which should make refinishing things a little bit easier. Since the bottom shelf of the cabinet and the sides are just pressboard, I want to add some solid pieces so that I can screw in the wheels that I want to put on here to something a little more sturdy. They're going to make the island really easy to move around and help me add an extra couple of inches to get this whole thing up to standard counter height. I am 100% just making this up as I go along, which happens a lot around here because it's just how my brain works. And every single piece of furniture is built a little bit differently, so they kind of all need a unique approach when it comes to making modifications like this. So I've made myself these stacks, one for each corner of a 1x3 and then two 2x4 blocks. And once I've got these secured down, I can add the locking swivel casters that I found on Amazon and then cover everything up with the trim. A bunch of wood glue and nails and screws later, I have a perfect platform to attach the wheels to and a unit that is going to be perfect counter height. I know it's not pretty, but it works. The next thing I want to do is chop these panels down to the right height so I can get them all nailed across the back. They're a little too wide to get with my chop saw blade, but I made one cut and then flipped everything over and cut again to make it work. And I did cut the whole stack of all three panels at once, just like it came bundled up. And these are super easy just to nail onto the back of the frame and the shelves, just like the old backer board was attached. This last board does need to be trimmed down, so I'm going to mark off where I need to cut it. And in case you didn't know, I don't do table saws, which is probably the ideal tool to cut down the length of this. You could also use a circular saw, but I already happen to have my jigsaw out from another project, so I'm going to put a little bit of painter's tape over my cut line to keep the blade from tearing up the MDF, and I'll just use this to cut off the excess. Back to these casters, I've marked off with a pencil where the screws need to go. I'm going to drill some tiny pilot holes so that when I do put the screws in, they don't split the wood, and then I'll just get these installed. Easy peasy. Not so easy peasy, for me anyway, is accurately measuring anything that needs a precise cut, like the trim that I want to have nice, clean, mitered corners on. So I got Mr. Salvaged, aka my husband Doug, to help me with this. I mean, I could have figured it out and done it myself, but there would have been multiple mistakes and miscuts and probably some tears. So yeah, I can admit my limits. Precision woodworking is not my thing, but it did only take him about 10 minutes to cut some 45-degree angles on each end of the 4 trim pieces that I needed, and then we just tacked them all in place with a nail or two. Before I call it a day, I'm just going to fill in all these little pinholes with some regular old wood filler, and then tomorrow when it's dry, I can sand it all smooth. All right, I am ready to get this thing right way up again, but before I flip it, I'm going to tape some plastic baggies over the wheels to hopefully protect them from the rough floor and any paint mess that might be coming. I really don't like the look of these screw covers or wood plugs on the front, so I'm just going to pop those off and fill in the holes. And I also need to fill in the seams or gaps on either end of that new back panel too. I'm going to mix up some of this heavy-duty wood filler. It's a 2-part epoxy product to make the rest of my repairs. This stuff is better for bigger fills, and it's not ever going to shrink or crack on me. It does start to cure and harden pretty quickly, though, once it's activated and you get the 2 components mixed together, so you only really have a couple of minutes to work with it. And I'm just going to mix up little piles as I need to so I don't end up wasting it. I guess while I'm at it, I should also fill in the nail holes from the old hardware and some of these bigger seams on the doors too. The filler is dry enough to sand, so I'm going to get started with that with some 120 grit sandpaper, which I can also use to clean up the pen marks or any stains on the insides of the drawers. And then I'll just go over the rest of the surfaces that I'm going to be painting to scuff up the previous finish and give my primer a little bit of micro texture to grab onto. Sanding is done, so I'm going to wipe off any dust with a barely damp microfiber cloth and then get myself set up to paint this base. I'm going to mask off the inside of the cabinet so I don't get any paint mess in there, and I also need to wrap the drawers to keep them clean too. I do think if I was refinishing this for someone else or to resell it for a profit, that I take the time to paint the inside of the cabinet white and just brighten it up and finish it off. But I'm planning on using this as extra storage and counter space in the kitchen of the apartment we have in our basement. So I'm not overly concerned with leaving it as is. I just don't want it to be messy or sloppy with a bunch of overspray. I prime all the time, no matter what kind of paint I'm using, and I love this shellac-based primer because it seals up any porous areas like the filler or the bare wood base so that the paint ends up looking even over everything instead of soaking into those spots. And it prevents any of the naturally occurring tannins or oils in the wood from bleeding up and staining my new finish over time. This primer is on the pricier side, and it's definitely more cost effective to buy it in a quart or gallon size can and apply it with a cheap microfiber roller. But I have a few of these spray cans that Rust-Oleum sent me for another project, so that's what I'm going to use today. You always want to work in a really well ventilated area with this stuff, and I'm wearing my respirator so that I don't breathe any of it in, but I'm going to spray as even of a layer as I can over everything, and I'll leave it to dry for probably 30 minutes. It dries pretty fast. Okay, I've ended up with this saggy spot.
Oh no, that's not dry.
It's not quite a drip, but you can definitely see that there is too much primer there, and it's obviously not quite dry yet, so I need to find some patience. I am going to keep going over everything else, though, with this fine grit sanding pad to smooth things out again and knock off any little dust bumps that got caught in this, and I'll fix that messy spot once it is all the way dry. For paint, I have this can of Bear's Alkyd Enamel in the color Poppy Seed that is actually left over from painting the kitchen cabinets in the apartment or guest suite a few years ago, so I'm going to use it on here too. It brushes and rolls so nicely, but I'm going to spray it on here today because that's the fastest and easiest way for me to get it done. It is a little bit of a thicker paint, so when I spray it, I do often add a little splash of water just to help get it through the nozzle easier. And this stuff is super tough once it's cured. I haven't had a single issue with it on our kitchen cabinets or any other furniture in the house that it's painted with. Without any additional top coating, it is totally scrubbable and hasn't chipped or scuffed at all, even with two rowdy boys and a 60-pound dog smashing into stuff all the time. It's dry to the touch after about 2 hours, but its suggested recoat time is between 4 and 6 hours. So once I finish this first coat, I'll let it chill for the afternoon, and then I can come back and fill in any light spots of coverage with a second layer. Before I went to bed last night, I did come out and flip the doors over and put the first coat of paint on the front side. So now I'm going to do the second coat for them and paint should be done. I just need to get that top sorted out. I do want to keep a nice wood finish here, and I thought about stripping this current finish off and then just applying a food safe butcher block oil to it, but I really don't like the kind of yellow-orange tone that this maple naturally has, and a plain oiled finish is just going to land me right back here again. So instead, I think once I get this stripped back, I'm going to go ahead and stain it and just seal it with a good poly top coat. It would be nice to say it's a food-safe surface, but I know for myself, I don't ever prepare food directly on the countertop. My mother would murder me if she ever saw me cutting something without a cutting board. So I don't think in our house anyway, having an all natural food safe certification is really necessary. Anyway, 80 grit sandpaper will grind through this finish and just the top layer of oxidized wood. And then I'll go over it again with 120 grit to smooth out the roughness from the 80. And finally, 180 grit to get the surface ready to finish again. I'm going to get all this dust cleaned off with some denatured alcohol and then have a really good up close look for any little sanding swirls that might need correction. Then I think I'm going to do a paint wash with a really watered down off-white paint just to keep it from turning back to its natural yellow shade. I don't have a recipe for this. It's just a bit of paint and a bit of water. And after I get this brushed over the whole surface, I'm going to wipe back all the excess water with a rag. So it's just leaving behind the smallest amount of pigment. And once it's dry, it shouldn't look too much different than the freshly sanded wood. But again, it won't pull that yellow color once it's top coated. Next, I'm going to add a layer of this stain on top of the paint to kind of bring it all back to life. And I really love the way that this General Finishes antique oak color looks over top of a whitewash. It's also water-based, so it's going to dry quickly. But again, I'm going to brush on a liberal layer over the whole surface, and then as fast as I can before it starts to dry, wipe back all of the excess, keeping everything going end to end in the direction of the grain to avoid any weird stop-start marks or streakiness. To seal this up and give it the really heavy-duty protection and serious scrubbability factor that a countertop needs, I'm going to brush on 3 coats of this exterior marine-grade poly top coat by Retique. I've used this on quite a few different coffee table flips and projects around our house, and I absolutely love how tough this stuff is, so I think it's going to be my best bet. It's also really easy to work with. It's kind of a cloudy white color in the jar, but it brushes out crystal clear, and this is their matte sheen. Honestly, I'd probably prefer more of a satin sheen on here, but this is what I've got, so that's what we're going with. And again, I'm just going to get it on here and then make sure to keep my final brush strokes going in the direction of the grain, which should help camouflage any brush stroke texture. And I'll probably also give it a really light smoothing sand after about 2 hours before I apply the next coat. I'm going to screw the top back on using the same holes in the frame, but I am going to scooch it back just a little bit so there's an overhang on the back too to cover up the top edge of that new backer board. And I am not at all concerned about the fact that the edge contour doesn't match all the way around. To me, that's just part of the character of the upcycle, but you could definitely use a router to fix that if you wanted to. While I'm fiddling around with these hinges, let's talk expenses. I paid $100 for this cabinet. I've spent about $80 on the new back and trim, $20 for the wheels, and even though I used primer and paint that I already had, let's say another $50 for those. So I'm all in to this project for about $250 in materials and 3 days of my time. So I'll let you decide what you think the potential resale value of something like this could be, and if you think it's a worthwhile project, either for personal use or to flip for a profit. Looking back at where this started for a second, it wasn't in bad condition by any means, but definitely a dated and bulky orange beast that was begging for a second chance. And now it's got clean, classic lines, a fresh paint job, the ability to easily roll around when and where it's needed, and a beautiful top that still shows off that natural wood grain, just in a way that actually works in a modern kitchen. It's functional, it's sturdy, and I love it. Like I said, this project has been on my mind for a long time, and I'm so proud of how it's come together. I wouldn't call this a beginner-friendly DIY, but it's also not overly complicated. If you've got some basic power tools, a bit of creativity, and an old cabinet like this collecting dust, maybe this is your sign that it doesn't have to stay that way. Thank you so much for watching this flip from start to finish. If you enjoyed this transformation, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for tons more furniture flips like this, and let me know in the comments what you think I should do with the top section. I always love hearing your ideas. I'll catch you all next time.